This is CityCast Pittsburgh. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. It can be kind of daunting to make new friends here in Pittsburgh. So many people running around with the same friends that they have had since primary school. I know I, for one, found it kind of tough to break in when I first moved here, but I'm stubborn. I locked in. I said yes a lot, and eventually it worked. If you're in a social rut, we are bringing back one from the archives with 3 people who we think can give you hope, talking about building community, finding your people, and some of the best ways to make and hopefully keep lasting friendships here in Pittsburgh. I'm with Haley Ingersoll, the founder of Pittsburgh Social Health, which helps Pittsburghers find and build community. Haley, welcome.
Hi.
Dan Lampman is the founder of Yen's Run Club. Y'all might remember Dan from our episode all about running in Pittsburgh. You survived the marathon. Dan, welcome back.
I survived. I'm still here. I'm still happy. So thanks for having me back.
And local author Ryan Rudzeski, who recently wrote a story for Pittsburgh Magazine about how to make friends in our city. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
So what do y'all think? Anybody jump in here. Is Pittsburgh a hard or an easy city to make friends in? And you have to defend your position. Come prepared.
I'm ready.
Haley,
I'll
go.
Jump in.
Haley, do it.
So it's a hard to begin with. And so speaking for myself as a transplant to Pittsburgh and someone who works with handfuls of newcomers, I've heard a lot how difficult it can be at first to sort of break through this like insularity where people are maybe friendly but not welcoming and don't necessarily grab you by the hand and take you places. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, I think it's important to like set the expectation that it might take a little bit of digging. You might have to be the one doing the outreach and a little bit of that sort of willingness and preparedness.
And Haley, do you think it's easy for you personally to make friends?
So I am an introvert by nature. I feel like I'm situationally...
And you're a transplant too.
And a transplant, yes. Yeah. So it was challenging at first, also moving in 2020, just like an abysmal time to meet new people, which actually I think is what pushed me more toward it is because I realized like, wow, I desperately need human interaction. But yes, still introverted at heart.
Dan, what about you? Ryan wrote about you in his story for Pittsburgh Magazine, and he called you, what was it, big gym teacher energy? How would you describe your experience here in Pittsburgh?
So I've been here for, I think, like it's 12 years now. I'm not originally from Pittsburgh. I'm originally from the east side of the state. I came here for school. So I had a reason to meet people with a lot of other people that were looking to meet people. So it was easier. I would answer your question as it depends. You meet people in these weird ad hoc ways or at these different events, and that becomes the group that you become friends with. Sometimes it might seem hard to enter into that group, even though everyone's really welcoming. But it really just takes a little bit of openness from your side and a willingness to say, when there's an open door to go to this event or meet these folks, that you allow yourself the courage to go in and meet those folks. And generally, as soon as you're there, everyone's very welcoming, but it might just feel like there's a barrier at first.
Yeah. Ryan, one of the things that you focused on for your story was like kind of these ways to meet people here in the city, like kind of that classic meetup style thing, like the website meetup where you can find like organizations, but it's gotten a lot bigger than that. What did you find from your research? Like, do you think Pittsburgh is a good place for friends?
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything Haley or Dan said. What they're saying tracks with what just about everybody I spoke to for the article told me, that yes, it's hard at first. That yes, it's always hard, especially if you don't come here as a college student or if you don't have a sort of built-in network. And I tried to find, some objective measure as to whether or not Pittsburgh is actually more difficult than other cities. And I don't know if that's an answerable question, but there was one study that came out in 2023 that ranked Pittsburgh the 6th loneliest city in the nation. Now, this was sort of a clickbaity survey put out by a real estate development firm. I wouldn't take it at face value.
I looked into it. It was based on the percentage of people living alone,
exactly.
Which I think, I would argue is maybe like also a product of us being like slightly more affordable than some other places.
Agreed. And so I think some of our demographics, yes, we have a higher than average number of people who live alone. We have a population that skews older. And if you look at data when it comes to loneliness and social isolation, those two groups are at higher risk for loneliness and social isolation. Can we say that Pittsburgh really is just slightly sadder than Cincinnati, but like a little bit happier than Cleveland? That's what this study says. I don't know. But, we do have this population that skews older. We are a city that's not nearly as diverse as some other major cities. Some of our neighborhoods and our shared spaces are still quite segregated. Lots of people who grew up here have a built-in friend network that they grew up with. And as you know, we haven't always been a growing city, although we did recently just record a pretty major uptick in population.
Yeah,
So
we got a couple thousand
not
more
a
people.
ton of transplants, but
Although
enough.
mostly because of new immigrants, new immigrant
Exactly,
arrivals,
which
which is
poses
great.
its own challenges for making friends when you're thinking about language barriers and assimilation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing, right? Like born and bred Pittsburghers are notorious for having the same friend groups since grade school. And so like it is possible to crack those nuts and to get into them, but it is difficult. It's like a challenge and you really have to like kind of wrap your head around it.
It does take a little bit of that courage to continue putting yourself out there. And newcomer anxiety at events is a very real thing. So yeah, doing your best to just put on a brave face and fake it till you make it, so to speak.
I couldn't agree more with that. In fact, one of the things I came across while researching the article was that there has actually been some research done that suggests that when we believe that we'll just form a community naturally, that just by going through our day-to-day life, we will start to make friends, that actually works against us because we don't then have the impetus, to gather up that courage that Haley mentioned. And so the longer we just assume we'll find friends, the longer we just assume that a community will build itself around us, the longer it actually takes.
I think going back to that too, it comes back to like we said courage. I said courage a second ago, and I do think it's realizing that if you feel awkward, that's fine. Everyone does, but the courage to just walk up and say hello when you're at an event that you know you're going to, that there might be people that are there to be open. That's why it's there. That's what it's set up to be. And I know for me, I've been here throughout 18, 19. So my teenage years, all of my 20s, and I just turned 30. So now I'm in my 30s, and I've met new people almost every single year through random places. And it's been because of an active effort to stay curious and be open, and both physically and emotionally, so that you're able to connect with new folks that might come out of nowhere and become a huge part of your life.
Well, how do y'all manifest that? Like, I mean, Dan, I feel like your events at Ian's Run Club, like it's sort of made for that because everybody's like already like physical and in their space and probably like bouncing or stretching or doing things anyway. But that's not true of like every type of meetup group, right? Like Haley with Pittsburgh Social Health, you plan all kinds of events. I don't know. How do you like make sure that like people feel comfortable, or how do you like talk yourself into those moments? What's your advice for folks?
I think that's been a big piece for us is at the onset of the event, when most people are there, is just kind of acknowledging that it feels a little weird, right? Like we're all
So you just
in that
straight
spot.
up say it. Like, I know most of y'all don't know each other. Like, we're going to get to know each other through the process of this.
It's happened on occasions, yeah. Especially we've done some offline meetups where we're also having the discomfort of putting our phones in a box, so we can't scroll. We can't like go click on a notification or pretend someone is contacting us or whatever the instance is. Again, to sort of embrace more of that in-person social connection and I don't want to say force, that feels aggressive, but again, noting like, okay, we have to use our imaginations, and also having prompts on the table if we're really reaching for things to talk about. There's, a few questions there to get the conversation rolling.
I do agree with Haley that like leaning into it is sometimes the only way through. Like there's always going to be anxiety, and the way you get through anxiety is by doing the thing you're avoiding. And something I saw again and again when reporting on these groups and talking to people about how they made friends is they did exactly that. They would go up to someone and say, hey, like, I know this is a little weird. I actually don't know anybody here, but I am so-and-so. And, without fail, we sometimes forget that all the people in these groups, they're all looking for the same thing, right? We're all looking for some sort of human connection. And sometimes all it takes is that little, self-introduction, and they bring you into the fold. And I think the best of these groups acknowledge that sometimes weirdness and that anxiety. They can make light of it, and they can lean into it.
So tell me about some of these groups. Like, which ones do y'all love? Obviously, Men's Run Club. What do y'all recommend here in the city?
So I was blown away just for a city of our size by both the volume and the variety of what's available. I mean, there's way more than I could have fit into the article. There are clubs for everybody. I talked to the Pittsburgh Introverts. The leader of that club is completely lovely.
Do they just text each other? Like what, how do they do it?
They do the same thing. They have like little small meetups at restaurants or at museums. And yeah, it's a little quiet at first, but then like they get to know each other by acknowledging, hey, we're all introverts. This is going to take a while. We're going to do this together. There are book clubs for every kind of genre you could think of. But the thing that got me thinking about this deeply was actually running with Dan's group, with Yin's Run Club. There's somebody I know really hit a rough patch in her life. Her engagement fell apart. She later had a serious injury, and her life kind of took a turn that a lot of people in their 30s and 40s can probably relate to. And so it was clear to me what a source of strength Yin's Run Club was for her. It was clear that community is what made her resilient. It's what helps us thrive even when things get dark. And so once I started looking for that community, I found it in so many places, some of which were very unexpected. The nudists. I went to this nude bowling event.
Yeah, the Naturists, a nude bowling event. I got to ask, did you participate?
I did. That was the condition of the interview, was that I had to fully participate. And I've never done this work without my clothes on before. But there were people, at this bowling alley, total party atmosphere, really, really fun. And yet there are people talking, moved to tears as they were telling me how much this community means to them and how sort of counterintuitively, how not judged they feel when they're with that group. And it's that sense of psychological safety, of being able to be fully ourselves, that I saw in so many places, Dan's group included. People just feel free to be themselves. And it's such a gift.
What do you think that does for like folks, social health, like the health component of all this? Like we hear statistics, like our Surgeon General this year talked about social isolation being like a new epidemic, which I feel like is like a big word for something like this, for us to think about it in those terms. What do you think like just the act of hanging out with new humans means to people?
So we talked about that sort of shared vulnerability and like creating norms for a group. And I think it's that vulnerability and some of that commonality that's created because friendships are formed when people are vulnerable with each other and share feelings, and you identify these commonalities.
All my best friends were from trauma bonding at bad jobs we've had in the past. Like all of them. They're still my family.
Those are the deepest relationships you'll have as in a toxic work setting, I have to say.
I think if I could add to, one of the things that when I started YRC is trying to find ways of putting people back in the headspace that you want to be in when you're open, when you're excited, when you can feel and express yourself more fully. And it's how do you put people back into the position where that front that they might feel they have to put up for the world to protect themselves can come down? How can you do that? At YRC, we do it in a couple of ways. One of them, and I talked about this with Ryan before too, it's like, I try to be that massive gym teacher energy because it gives everyone the excuse to try to bring their full self. If no one's going to be weird as Dan, and by extension, no one is going to be as weird as the other run captains that now lead the group that I no longer have to do, because they decide to be as big, bright, and beautiful as they would want to be. And everyone else goes, okay, well, if they're that much, they're clearly setting a tone that I can be as much as I want. And it gives an excuse. And I think giving someone an excuse, giving someone a prompt, giving someone a way to act allows them to feel more comfortable doing it because they know this is what everyone's doing now. And you kind of create that mental switch. You forget that connection is actually very, very simple. And it's doing something together with another person and being vulnerable. And that vulnerability could just be the laughter that you have with someone because something that you saw is ridiculous. It could just be the half comments while you're walking to that volunteer opportunity that you decided to go on to Garden and Homewood. It could be any of those small moments that allow you to feel connected. And I think when you think about loneliness, it is those small moments. So how can you, as a organizer of an event or as a person out in the world, try to facilitate those small moments and be that person that takes that posture? I think that is a really important piece that really shows when you have someone that can kind of bring that light to a group.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I remember Dan telling me that he was describing how he'd set up Yin's Run Club. And how they'd sort of develop the procedures of making sure that new runners, get introduced to somebody else, and why they have pacers and why they have sweepers at the back to make sure nobody gets lost. And I remember very clearly, Dan, you said, the whole point of everything we're doing is to make sure people feel cared for. Because when people feel cared for, that sense of fight or flight goes away. And that's when you start making friends, because then that's when you're being yourself. And it's really, really hard sometimes to bring those barriers down. But the more play you can infuse and the more of those little moments that Dan mentioned, it doesn't take much to start breaking down that armor.
What about you, Haley? Are there types of events that you've seen maybe work better for different types of humans, or things that you would recommend?
Yeah, I think especially here at Pittsburgh Social Health, one thing we focus a lot is just quality over quantity of our interactions. Again, so some of these offline meetups we realize are not going to bring in a huge crowd. Like, we are in this hyper digital world, but the people who do show up are very intentional. And so sort of creating themes around that is really cool. And we like to nerd out about, again, the Surgeon General's report and talk about how valuable all of this can be at like a social, mental, physical level.
But wait, are y'all sitting around talking about Surgeon General reports? Like, what are your meetups?
That is how I spend my free time. I don't know about you guys, but genuinely, I do.
Right now?
What am I reading? The Artist's Way, because we're in a recession.
That's on my bookshelf, but I've never cracked it. It's been there for 10 years.
No, I've been told it's a recession indicator. So yeah, I would say it's different for everybody what they're looking for. And in Pittsburgh, we're actually fortunate to have so many things. Like, I actually learned today that we have a nudist group and an introverts club. And so I'll be Googling those later. But I think, again, that's just a reminder to continue looking, because there are many, many things out here, even if they aren't hitting you in the face every other day.
And if I can actually toss in, Haley, you did something else that I am so glad. I'm so upset that I have not been able to go to it yet. But you've done a couple of the hot seats at Trace. And I think one of the cool, like,
that's like the friend dating thing, right? Like, where it's like, okay, how does it work?
Please tell them about this.
Okay, yeah. So you've probably seen Hot Ones. It's, the popular series where they sit with celebrities, make them eat hot wings while they talk about their careers and whatnot. So we made a Pittsburgh version of that, and it's panel style. So we've hosted 2 of them last May and November. The November one had a specific theme of third places. So we had people who work for the libraries, Third Space Bakery, Farmers Market. I'm losing the others, but you get the point. So it's
places where people feel comfortable and like kind of come as you are atmospheres.
Exactly. Yeah. And to sort of speak on this importance of community spaces outside of home and work. But so what we do is make them eat hot wings while they do that. And it's just kind of fun to see these people like sweat it out and be more candid about how they feel with community efforts and friendship and all of that. It's creative programming because, people have called Pittsburgh the city of 1,000 panels. So you have to make it fun and interesting if you're trying to like get something across.
Hot wings is a good start. Also the food, Trace is chill.
Right.
Let's talk about like that next step though. Like, I think this element of kindness, like holding a door for someone or just like having a 2-minute conversation where you're like, oh, that was nice. Like, that wasn't so bad. I like this person maybe. How do you take that feeling, that like encapsulation, and turn it into like an actual friendship, or like take that next step? Like, what's your advice for folks for like from good feels to like actually seeing them again on purpose?
I will go back to what I said earlier, that it's really not that complicated if you enter in with a lot of gratitude, a lot of care, and a lot of authenticity and transparency. And I'll say that because I have a best friend. His name's Colin. I met him when I was in 7th grade. And the reason that we're best friends is because one day I came home from the bus because I didn't have close friends. And I said, I think I want to hang out with him. And I picked up my landline phone and I called his house and said, hey, would you like to be friends with me? Do you want to ride bikes sometime? I'm in his wedding in March, and we've been best friends my entire life since that moment. And I say that because it really does just take one person to say, hey, I think we could be friends. Would you like to grab coffee sometime? It might sound like, if you position it like you're asking someone out, you kind of are. You're asking someone, I think we have something here and we can be friends. Would you like to go explore that? And relationships are just relationships, and no matter if they're romantic or if they're friendships. So if you share with someone that vulnerability and hopefully they return it, and if it's unfortunate that they don't, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. But I think because it worked out so great for me, and I have a best friend because of that. To me, it is muster that courage, believe in yourself, know that they probably feel just as awkward about you asking, and take that leap and just ask and say, would you like to grab coffee? Would you like to go on a run? Would you like to go climbing? Whatever it is. And I think just it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be authentic. And if you go in with a lot of care, you'll hopefully come out really happy.
One thing I saw done really brilliantly by so many of these groups was using some sort of digital platform as a mediator for this. Dan can tell you more about the YRC WhatsApp group, but everybody who signs the waiver, I believe, Dan, is automatically or can opt into this WhatsApp group.
Everyone's invited. We have had Russian bots come in once, so I do not share it publicly, but anyone that comes to a run, we know you're a human being and you get invited.
Yeah, so they have that, and on this app, people invite each other to parties, or they say, hey, I have extra concert tickets to this thing. A lot of the meetup groups that I talked to said that their groups really took off when people started posting in the meetup group online, like, hey, I had a really great time. Does anyone want to go do X, Y, or Z? I think that digital platforms, including Haley's account, can be that sort of 21st century version of Dan's landline when he called his friend. And it does take a little bit of pressure off to do this via screen, via text, or in a group chat. It's a really nice way to sort of ease into that big question, do you want to be friends?
Yeah, I mean, well, and say somebody wants to take like a much bigger step, like you, Dan, and Haley, like not just want to start a thing, but like decide I want to start a whole group. Like I want to build it around whatever niche interest I have in this moment. How do you recommend they do that?
Yeah, I think starting by exploring what's already out there is a good way to get inspiration. Mine was mostly driven out of conversations. Like I realized there are many other transplants here. And so I thought, okay, maybe we need a meetup for that. And it then evolved into we need to be more social, just collectively, realizing it should be a wider net and anyone who wants to be social should do so. But it was identifying that gap to begin with that I think gave me it had to incubate for a while, but then I sort of just started to build my case. So if there are things that you kind of keep finding yourself saying, someone should do this thing, you might have to be that person who, takes that step. And you might find, especially if there are other people who are already alongside you, they might want to join you in that journey. If there are people who are like-minded or have the same passion and you're constantly playing volleyball all together, maybe you do need to put a team together, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would say believe the delusion that you should start it and find the best way that is accessible to you. YRC started because I put a poll out on Instagram stories and 9 people responded. And I said, sure, I'm going to make an account. I named it something and I went on a run and it was 5 people. And then 4 years later, we're here. And
it's a lot of people now.
It's a lot more people now. And I think just believing in yourself and, saying, hey, I think this will be fun. And I think this is something that I'd like to do. And if you can just find the easiest way for you to put that foot in front of the other and start, you'll be really surprised and happy about the outcome.
Well, y'all, we really appreciate you putting this perspective together. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the city to bring people together. It's really great. Ryan, we'll have a link to your article in our show notes. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. You can support us by becoming a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor. All the details are at membership.citycast.fm. We will be back tomorrow with more from around the city. We'll talk to you soon. Ryan, I got to know, how did you do bowling naked? What was your score?
So I actually did not roll a ball.
What? How are you bowling then? That doesn't count.
So I went and I ran into, first of all, a guy I had not seen since high school. So it was a very interesting way to see each other after 20 years.